Adrián Díaz, and I'm working as consultant in China. I'm doing import-export, but also execution for companies that come to China and need help there. And I used to define myself as a cultural translator because one of the most important things in China is not just understand the language, but understand the local culture.
Where are you originally from?
I'm from Barcelona, from Spain, but I've been already 14 years in China, so I'm already consider myself half Chinese. I took many years to understand how Chinese people think, to understand also the consumers, because you need to see the market with their point of view to understand why they should buy your products, right? So it's a process. It's not something that you can learn in the university. It's not something you can learn from somebody. It's something you have to experience by yourself. I always had the dream to have my own factory, which I already did finally, but and the place to create your factory, I couldn't imagine a better place than China. But also it's true that many people who experience the journey in China, either you love it or you hate it. So I had I had this point of discovering that was my place in the world. And I was useful there, I had a great value there, so I started to love it, and it was a love story. I met entrepreneurs that for them traveling is a nightmare, and their place in the world is the place that they're born. Right? Right. So maybe they discover their place in the world in terms of different market, different job, but not changing location, right? Mm-hmm. For me, changing location was a very good way to open my mind, right, and discover new things. And when I arrived to China, I say, this is the place. Yeah. But maybe it's not for everyone, right? I entered in China in a very traditional area of Guangzhou in that time. So when I discovered another foreigners, I discovered that they were all moving in groups and they were not really learning the local culture. So I discovered that maybe getting really inside in the roots of the Chinese culture, it worked for me and make me special, make me match all the needs I had in that time, because what I wanted is communicate with local factories, with local consumers. From the first moment, even people was telling me, okay, you will get tired of China in 1 year, in 2 years. From the first month, I knew I will be there maybe, I don't know, the rest of my life, or at least a long time. So from the first time, I tried to learn the language. I tried to learn how to sing in the language, because I discovered singing in the karaoke was important for them and was a part of the... So when they see a foreigner singing in Chinese, they get totally shocked, right? Right. I learned how to play the mahjong, that is the local chess. Let's translate it like this, even if it's wrong. Mm-hmm. So when I can win a game of mahjong to a Chinese person, they get totally shocked as well, right? But many foreigners don't spend the time of learning this kind of Chinese chess because it takes too long time. Mm-hmm. So it's a matter, for me the approach is, I'm gonna be a long time here, and this effort is worth or not. If the answer is yes, and you are not doing it, for me it's a mistake. Yeah.
Obviously, you speak the language at this point, yes? Yeah. Was it difficult?
Wow, it was very difficult. Yeah. And some of the problems, the most interesting problem that I had is maybe not intuitive. That is when I'm traveling in the interior of China, most of Chinese cannot speak Mandarin. Mm-hmm. So when I explain to my friends that I cannot communicate with them because of their Chinese, not because of my Chinese, people don't believe, right? Right. But some of now I'm married with a Chinese lady, and I cannot communicate with my family-in-law because they're Chinese. Wow. And which is wonderful, but it's something that I was not supposing at the start, right? I supposed that once I learn Mandarin, I will be able, because Mandarin is the most spoken language in the world, but it's not. I normally explain to businessmen that come to China that, as I mentioned before, culture is the most important thing to do business with China. So most of the entrepreneurs, even big businessmen, even enterprise, they come to China and they say, okay, we conquer 30 markets and China will be the 31, and doesn't work. Yeah. It doesn't matter, those 30 markets that you previously went were, I don't know, Hong Kong, were Vietnam, were countries that you assume that have similarities with China, because China is another world. And if you come with previous conceptions of what you are going to find in China, you will fail. So I used to say that China is the place that you have to be really flexible in terms of circumstances that will happen to your business. If you cannot maneuver very fast and change, pivot to new scenarios, don't come to China, because you're going to have a lot of problems there.
Tell me about your factory.
We had a factory because we had a client that wanted to get some goods in China, and I was the person who was finding the right factory for them, but we couldn't find the quality that he needed. So I proposed to my client to create the factory especially for him. So that's how I started my factory.
Yeah.
And step by step we were growing up, but finally we were working for Disney, for several big companies, Walmart. Yeah. So we were producing very premium quality items, where they couldn't find the right factory in China managed by Chinese, but when they found a factory managed by a Western in China, so we could say like a Western management with Chinese prices,
right.
We were the exactly
there you go.
Supplier that this client needs.
That was your niche.
Yeah.
You found it.
Yeah. So when I talk about factory, it was a factory, but this is small comparing with the Chinese factories that are huge.
Do you think that AI will affect your business negatively or positively?
No, completely opposite. For me, it's all opportunities. Thanks that I was in these interior provinces and building my factory, I got relations with local governments. So now I'm working also as consultant for central government of China. And the project they hire me for is two main programs. One is One Belt, One Road, the expansion of China, the new Silk Road.
Yes.
And the second one is Made in China 2025, which exactly answers your question, that is how we adapt new technologies to the old ways of manufacture. So what we are doing is bringing foreigner technologies, foreigner designs, foreigner new ways to do things, to implement it to the Chinese traditional manufacturer system. Right. So once you have the old manufacturer system, you can scare of the new technologies, or you can use the new technologies to improve your current business, which is what we are doing. Let's consider that we are talking about one entrepreneur that is coming to China to sell products to Chinese market. So the first advice I will give is don't go to Shanghai, because it's where everybody is going and where he will not be special. So everything what I'm doing in China is about being special. So you have provinces of 100 million people which are not touched by your segment, by your technology, by your brand, which in Europe or anywhere in the world will be a country by itself. And we are not taking care of those provinces. And we have more than, I would say, 25 provinces that are really virgin territory for the entrepreneurs. Second question, I would say find a right partner in China, because you cannot do things by yourself and you will get cheated. If you're trying to do things by yourself, you will have a lot of problems with bureaucracy, which is indeed not a problem to do business in China if you know how to handle it. Third advice, well, I will get stuck in the main one. But I would say you will need an office in China. You will need a team in China. You cannot run a business in China remotely.
That person-to-person interaction is still very important.
Yeah, this is what we call guanxi. The guanxi in China is the relations, the network of relations that you can achieve. And we always say that guanxi is not something you use, but something you cultivate all your life, right? And hopefully you will never need to use. But sometimes when you are a foreigner, or you are we say in Chinese, lideran, which is like the foreign province to province. Let's say the people who move from a province to another one inside China, you are a foreigner there, or whatever. Yeah. So you need the local context to make your business possible, and focus at least 80% of your time in your business and not in dealing with bureaucracy, with local authorities, etc. And this is very important when you are setting up some business in China. Some people told me once that you cannot go to the interior provinces of China because there the authorities will make your business impossible, because they don't have the business mentality, so they will come ask you for money or ask you for, or taking your time basically. But this is because you went there without the right context. So for me, like you say, the contact peer-to-peer is very important, and trying to find your counterpart in the local market will help a lot. China changed rapidly, so assumptions that were reality 10 years ago doesn't work right now. You have to be permanently learning. I would say that foreigners, actually, we care too much about the etiquette or the way to present ourselves in front of Chinese, or the way to act. Actually, Chinese are much more flexible than what we believe. And you have, I call it this foreigner visa. This foreigner visa allows you to make mistakes. Because why? Because they understand that you don't understand Chinese culture. So I don't think a negotiation can be broken by a lack of forms, or a lack of attention, or some mistake, or you didn't do the correct gift. It never happened to me in these 14 years. So what I would dig more is about the terms of the contract, for example, because for Chinese, it's more important shaking hands, maybe a word of yourself, than a contract. But Westerns, we believe that one day this relation will go wrong and we will go back to the contract. Actually, I've never been in the court. I've been for other reasons, but not for business problems, because we usually solve the problems of the contract talking and negotiating. Chinese is scared about the court. They don't believe that things can be solved in the court. Even they are right. They prefer to lose and get a fast agreement.
Any entrepreneur coming in, even though they have that grace period, right, because they're foreigners, what are some of the things that would just be nice that we are mindful of in terms of respect in the culture?
For example, something very simple that I used to advise to people is invite them to your country. Chinese, even we think is an amazing amount of tourists. Less than 10% of Chinese people has passport. And even this 10% doesn't mean they are traveling all the time. So there are a few percentage of Chinese that actually are traveling, but they love to see other countries. They love to see Western countries. And some very nice approach I did to many Chinese when I don't have anything in common with them is, come to Barcelona, I will invite you. I will bring you to see the football, to go shopping, to go to the casino. And they love it. And this is something that is already a gift by itself, right? Sometimes we say, which gift I can bring to Chinese? Invite them to your home. They will feel so rich that have a person in another country that is inviting them. And this will break a lot of cultural differences from the first moment without any cost.